So I'll be presenting a couple of things today. First, I'll be briefly going through a timeline of my design career, which spanned around about 15 years. Then I'm going to be going through current and future jobs in the design industry. And then finally, we've got questions. So I'm recording this also for my Year 12s. So I'll do all of the speaking and then we'll do the question time after. So if you've got any questions, maybe just note them down in your head and we'll go through them. I'm happy to go back over slides. So as I talk through the timeline of events, I'm going to start from my Year 12 experience because it's around about where you guys are picking up. And then I'm going to go all the way through to when I changed careers to become a teacher. Any type of design career, generally the structure of employment falls between these three types. So you've got freelance design, which is where I spent most of my career. You've got agency work, and then you've got client-side or in-house work. There are three different types. Effectively, you're designing in all of them. And I'm going to go through all of these in a little bit more detail at the end, but I just thought I might give you that for context so that you can follow along a little easier. So I'll start at my Year 12. Completed Year 12 in 2003. English, IT, visual communication design, studio art and art. My teachers didn't recommend that I did 3 folio subjects because that's pretty insane, but I was pretty convinced that I wanted to do design, so I was quite happy to do all 3 of those. My ATAR, by my school standards, was pretty good. By your school standards, is very, very poor. VCD study design, this is kind of what got me over the line. I got a study score of 49 in that. Wasn't really necessary to land a university placement in design, but I also got shortlisted for top designs as well, so that kind of just sort of reinforced to me that design was a career that I should be going into. The other thing I'll mention is I did try to take on as much freelance work as I could in years 11 and 12. So reaching out to friends, I was doing a lot of design for fashion labels and also tattoo designs that I'd sell to my local tattoo shop. So kind of just exploring all of that. This is my final folio for Year 12. So I really enjoyed that. Absolutely loved car design and was able to do some communication design as well. And this is some of the freelance work I was doing for that. This was a surf label and this was a motorcycle clothing label. So trying to just get your feelers out there and do as much as you can externally to really kind of bump up your experience and just kind of show that you're enthusiastic. So after that, of course, we've got our uni life. Bachelor of Visual Arts in Graphic Design. It was at La Trobe Bendigo. At the time, the city was a little bit expensive for me. I come from the country, so I chose a regional university. The quality of education at La Trobe Bendigo was pretty good, not quite at the standard I think you would expect from a Melbourne university, but one of the things about design is that it's much more about what you do with it. You'll still be given roughly the same assignments, so if you pick it up and really use it as an opportunity to learn, you can get just as good a learning experience from any university. So don't get too concerned about the prestige or picking the fanciest one or the best reputation. It is what you do with it. Did a lot of electives. So you learn mainly design in the university, but I also did photography, clay, art history, and 3D modelling. So this is an example of some of the work that I did at uni. Mostly what I was learning about and doing was corporate branding, design, brochures, print publications. But I got to do a bit of 3D modelling, which I really enjoyed. It's important to learn a little bit about photography. You might be managing photo shoots if you're doing fashion design or retail design. So being able to understand what a photographer does. You might even end up doing some photography yourself. Also some illustration work as well. So really, really enjoyed illustration. That was kind of the thing that made me so passionate about design. Also some package design. You'll do that in university as well if you're choosing a graphic design degree. And the other thing I'll mention is I also did a lot of freelance work outside. So for small brands, I worked for the Bendigo Advertiser doing their newspaper layouts. Lots of logo designs, few little fashion labels, different events. I worked for a couple of football teams doing their logos and branding. So basically just putting your feelers out and making sure that you're doing as much of that as possible. So finished uni in 2006, applied for a position through Seek, I think, or it was something equivalent to that. It was back in Wodonga, where I came from. All the usual things that you're probably familiar with. You'll do a cover letter and a resume. Any design jobs, you are going to need to have some sort of folio. So that's where it's really beneficial if you have put your hand up for any freelance work. Even if it's through family, just showing that you've got this freelance folio that is outside your coursework kind of suggests that you've got that enthusiasm and you've got a bit of an idea of what design looks like outside the academic perspective. This is really what they were looking for, energetic and enthusiastic. So that's the sort of thing that you want to communicate in your folio in your early career. They're not expecting you to know everything. They've probably had junior designers before and they know that you're going to learn a heap, but what they do care about is that you are enthusiastic enough to actually learn that sort of stuff when you get onto the job. The other thing I'd recommend is researching the company. Massively beneficial if you can walk in and know which clients that company works with, etc. So learn about the people, learn about their mission statement. It's all so easy to find online these days, so do your research so you walk into the interview with a bit of information behind you. So 2007 to 2008, I was a junior designer, spent 1 year there. I was on $30,000, which was a very low income even for the time. That's the equivalent of about $50,000 a year in adjusting for inflation. So that was quite a low income, possibly because it was regional. But yeah, you would generally expect around about $60,000 to $70,000 if you're a entry-level junior designer coming into the industry. So straight out of uni. Mostly design and creative and very little management is what I was doing. So as a junior designer, your role is effectively to design. All of the briefing, all of the project management, the client liaisons are normally taken care of for you. You're just asked to produce a logo or produce a series of concepts. So this is some of the stuff I did in my early age, in my early stages. Yeah, so I was for a signwriting and design agency. So I was really lucky because I loved that tattoo design. I loved tribals. Back in the day, tribals were kind of actually cool. So I was able to kind of carry a lot of my skills and knowledge of tribal design into these kind of illustrative designs. That really caught on well, so that kind of rolled into lots of other jobs where they saw something like this and then they wanted something else. That kind of culminated with the jet ski company. They were launching a new jet ski brand and asked me to do the decals because they really liked that kind of tribal aesthetic. So had a lot of fun with that, and I was extremely lucky to land in a job where I was able to use my existing style and skill set in a way that people were happy to pay for. So with that kind of logo design style, that sort of tribal tattoo design style, a lot of companies started coming to this agency because that was the style they could expect. So I ended up doing a lot of logo designs as well. Only after a year that I moved into a senior role. The senior designer above me moved out and I opted to apply for the senior position, which I was granted. Frankly, in hindsight, I was probably given that senior role too quickly. It involved a lot of time organisation, the management of people, and it kind of took me away from design a little bit more than I probably should have been after only a year. So if there's anything to learn from that, probably don't try to move up too quickly. Try to enjoy your time as a junior designer, enjoy your time as a midweight designer, and then once you've kind of ticked all of those boxes and you're ready, that's when you can kind of move to senior design. So don't try to push too hard to move up too quickly. We was put onto a 40k income, which was also very low for the time. That's about 70 or 80 by today's standards, which is pretty low for a senior designer. I was still doing heaps of design, but now I was liaising with the client, going to meetings, doing project management, managing people, talking directly with printers, and all of that stuff to make sure that the project from start to finish was good. Did some really enjoyable stuff. Daimler Chrysler kind of saw the tattoo-y kind of style and they kind of came on board and wanted a lot of their stuff done. Same with Mercedes-Benz, that was another company. UD Trucks did the same, they kind of like these squishy graphics, so did a lot of stuff for that. Fresh and clean. These vans are still driving around with that design. This is like 100 years later, so this is probably the only one that's still around. So yeah, that was really fun. Really, really enjoyed that component, and it culminated with the V8 supercars coming in and wanting some designs done as well. So got to do some really cool stuff and meet the V8 supercars guys, who are really lovely, smiley people too. Moving forward from that, wrapped that up, started the business in 2009. Starting a business is really daunting, but it's something that I'd recommend if you're going to do any kind of design. I do think some sort of freelance work is beneficial to break into. It was basically formulated on this NICE scheme, which is a government scheme that still exists, where basically they pay you a wage, they pay for a business management course, and they give you about 2 years of income to start your business, so it's effectively a grant. So I recommend doing that if any of you are going freelance. Starting small, my design business was called 2EZ Design, or 2EZ Design. There was a play on words that failed miserably, because in Australia it's Z, so everyone kept calling it 2EZ. It's supposed to be 2EZ. It was hilarious, nobody laughed. First year, I made about $50,000, so that's starting to get on a reasonable kind of wicket. So it was around about $80,000 by today's standards, which is not great, but it continued to grow. I'm often asked how you set up your initial client base. For me particularly, the business course that the government paid for was not effective in terms of teaching me anything about business, but it was very effective in that I was surrounded by a bunch of other people that were also thinking of starting their business, other types of business. So the first year of wages basically came through that base. There was about 30 other people in the class. They all needed logos, they all needed websites, so that was kind of my initial launch into my freelance career. So mostly doing logo designs, lots and lots of them. The logo designs, about $300 each, and then a website was about $600. So I did about 50 over the course of a year, which comprised my $50,000 income. So lots and lots of work and reasonably low pay for something like a logo design. But it's about trying to get that traction, which is kind of the main thing. Moving forward from there, if my clicker's going to... There we go. So that was effectively it. You do a logo design for a company, and then they'd ask for a website, and then they'd ask for a brochure, and then they'd sort of talk to their friends. So that's kind of how that initial traction kind of happens. Moving forward from there, grew the business through 2010 to 2011. Took on a larger contract with a real estate company, First National Real Estate. They were the first kind of large national company that I took on as my as a freelancer. So that was a 1-year contract, and by that stage I was making about $80,000, which is reasonably high for the level of experience that I had. So I was kind of starting to move up, and the wage was growing. So I spent a year on that, working on their branding. They had this existing brand which they had for many, many years, so they were sort of asking to consolidate that onto a series of different collateral, such as cars and... I feel like I'm putting my computer to sleep. I hope you guys aren't as bored as my computer is. There we go. Yeah. So you do signage, you'll do brochures. These are campaigns, so they did national TV campaigns, and you work with the agencies around that, things like that. So that was really fun. Did that for about a year, and that was kind of my movement or my foray into larger corporate work, which is generally much more lucrative. And it gave me a footing to open my own studio in Yarraville. In the years that I had my studio, income was around about 100,000 which is getting quite high. So I hovered around that for about 3 or 4 years, about the 100 to 150,000 mark. This is what my studio looked like. It was quite fun. I lived at the back of it, so I'd kind of just wake up and just walk into my office and had no life whatsoever. It was quite sad. But put some signage up. It was really fun. It was a really exciting time. I was in my mid-20s and just got the opportunity to really just immerse myself in the business. It was my main focus. Really enjoyed that and learnt a lot about myself. Again, lots of similar stuff. It's just for slightly larger companies, Transport Society, some larger businesses, more established businesses, and some agencies that I did some design work for. So I really enjoyed that component, and my design was getting better and better. Like it's something that you continue to get better at. Even after 15 years, I was still making marginal improvements. So it is something that you never stop improving at. Moving forward from that, yeah, so I'll skip over the next 5 years because I just kept designing. It was really good. Consulted for several design agencies, so there are some larger design agencies that basically brought me in as a consultant to help with some of their major projects, working with the likes of, say, like Microsoft, Symantec, Macquarie Bank, yeah, a few others. Consulted directly with corporates as well, and by this stage it was kind of circa about $200,000 for the income, which is very, very high. It kind of represents around about the upper end of what you would earn as a freelance designer. I don't know of anybody that's earned really more than that, but these are some of the designs. Yeah, that was a bit of a job for Jetstar, Camp Australia, it was an after-school care company. So this is all print design. Moved into a little bit of exhibition display designs. This was some of the stuff I did for Microsoft, Half Brick, which is a gaming company, Skylanders, working on some of that. So that was really fun. That was through an agency called Popology, who were focused on that. So they brought me in as a consultant to help with the design components of these projects. So that was really fun. Yeah, these are some of the agencies or some of the companies where I worked effectively client side. They would book me in as a design consultant, and I effectively worked full time with them for about 6 months. So this one particularly, it was a 6-month contract where they just brought me in just to ensure that their website went from nothing to something. Similar with this one, and same with that one. That was a major website. That was about a 500-page website. So yeah, so I had lots and lots of fun over the next 5 years as far as that goes. And then after about 15 years, yeah, decided to pack it all up and become a teacher. So yeah, in my eyes, after the 15 years, I felt like I'd done everything that I needed to do. I ticked all of the boxes that I wanted to tick, and I put myself in a financial position where I was able to go back to study and become a teacher. And yeah, I've absolutely loved teaching ever since. So it's been nearly 3 years now. So that's me as a teacher. That's effectively my career. Over the course of 15 years, that's pretty much from go to woe. Now I'm going to talk about the current design market. I had a quick look yesterday on Seek, just typed in graphic design on Seek. There was about 3,000 plus jobs going, just in Melbourne alone. So there's still heaps and heaps of work out there. Most of these are traditional graphic design roles. So by traditional graphic design roles, I mean you just go in, mostly client-side work, which I'm going to explain what that is, and you're doing logos, you're doing websites, you're doing business cards, you're doing branding, advertising, lots and lots of different things. Some of them are sort of more specific and a bit more deviating from graphic design, so UX and UI. So that's kind of app design, animation, fashion and textiles, marketing, communications and web design, signage and installation. So these are all still graphic design, but they kind of deviate a little bit from that traditional graphic design. There are also hybrid roles appearing. So it might be beneficial if you're really enthusiastic about IT. You could become a developer, so say a full stack developer where you can code the back end and then develop the front end and create your own app from start to finish. Digital and search marketing, digital marketing. So there are kind of these hybrid roles that are appearing because the industry is changing really quickly. So that's what the current market looks like. It's very healthy. As I promised before, these are those type of jobs. So most of what I did was in this freelance space, where effectively you're working for yourself. You're a small business, you're finding your own clients. It's really exciting, it's really interesting. You can pick your style, and as you get better, you can pick who your clients are going to be. So if you're really interested in a certain sport or a certain type of theatre, you can kind of target your business to addressing some of those needs. Yeah, so that's what's really cool about freelance. You can move about. The issue with freelance is it's not highly stable. if you're a freelance designer and you don't get any clients, you don't get any money. So it's, there is that stability payoff. So it's probably something that you would want to do in your junior years, where you're able to take those risks if you're living at home or something. Agency roles are kind of midway through. So they're basically large organisations for freelance workers. So they work on a lot of different projects and they'll bring you in as a designer to work on the clients that they bring in. So that's that sort of agency role. That'll be between, say, 5 and 100 different people, and lots of different clients. So you might be working for the Combank one day, you might be working for the Melbourne Demons the next. And then there's client side, in-house. This is a very, very stable sort of job. You get this sort of job and you'd be very unlucky to really lose that job. It's not volatile. So you imagine client side might be that you would be employed by the Commonwealth Bank as their designer, and unless you do something really terrible, like using NAB, you're not going to really lose your job and you just sort of slightly move up the rankings. So, because I didn't do much client side, I'm going to quickly talk about what a career in client side might look like as well. So you're kind of seeing roughly what the freelance and agency looks like. So as far as client side, this is me basically just doing a bit of a search. You would start as a junior graphic designer. They didn't include the wage, probably because it's too low. But I hazard a guess to say between $50,000 and $70,000, you'd come out of uni and sort of be stepping into around about that. You'd be a junior graphic designer, they don't expect experience. These are some of the things that they will always ask for. Adobe Suite understanding, degree in design, you need one of them. Creative thinking, ability to work autonomously, so basically when they're not watching that you're still working, and good time organisation skills. Any design job is quite sensitive to time, so being able to do something like if you're doing a logo or a brand and they've just spent $100,000 on TV advertising that launches on this exact date, yeah, you're in a lot of trouble if you haven't done your side of the job by the time that TV advertisement rolls in. So doing things like that, so very, very good time organisational skills. But that's where you can start. You probably spend a couple of years as a junior graphic designer, depending on how well you're progressing. This is an example of a mid-level designer. These are all in the fashion industry as well. So these guys are asking for about 2 to 3 years experience, effectively exactly the same thing after that, but they just want you to know design a little bit better. So you will have learned a huge amount in that 2 or 3 years. By that stage, you're moving up to about $70,000 or $80,000, so it's starting to look kind of healthy. But this would be a really exciting job. This is actually still on Seek, so you'd be working for all of these companies, which, yeah, could be quite interesting, depending on what you're interested in. Moving forward from that, after a few more years, you probably move into a brand manager position. So this is all that client side kind of work. Very, very stable. $85,000 to $100,000. And this is where you're starting to manage people. So you'd still be doing a little bit of design, but it's a lot more about managing the junior designers and giving them guidance and strategy and things like that. So this is where you need to be good with multitasking, managing a team, relationship management, and knowing what the junior designers are going through as well. Once we skip a few after that, you've probably spent a few years doing that. Moving into an art director role, where it's effectively just a little bit above your brand manager. You'd be earning $100,000, maybe $150,000. Working on all components of the brief. So you'd be talking to clients. You'd be coming up with high-level strategies. You probably want about 5 years of experience by that stage. And then skip a lot more. This is kind of the end of the road, where you're a chief marketing officer. Normally, it's spent at least 10 years in the industry by this stage. Only the big corporates have chief marketing officers. It was really hard to find a job like this on Seek because they simply stop advertising on things like Seek when you're looking at the $200,000 to $300,000 range. That's when they look at executive kind of recruitment services. But that's pretty much where you would end up as a chief marketing officer for a large corporate. Still doing a bit of design and strategy, but mostly in that kind of managerial role. So following on from that, I hope that you asked a little bit about AI and the effects that AI might have from the industry. So I thought I might just try to address that as best I can. Naturally, nobody knows exactly what is going to happen with that, with all that sort of stuff. But we are aware that AI can generate images and cameras kind of work themselves, so photographers are sort of dwindling a little bit, and programs are becoming far more accessible. So the value of understanding certain programs is less there because there are so many more YouTube tutorials and things that can get you online. So in a lot of regards, AI is going to change the way the design industry works. That said, the design industry, I think, is probably one of the most protected industries from what AI is going to do. Because effectively, design is about coming up with new ideas, new ways of thinking, and AI simply can't do that. All AI can do is respond to the information that exists already. So I think that gives a lot of protection, because creative thinking is, I think it's one of the last things that AI will necessarily be able to emulate well. Design usually involves novel and adaptive thinking as well. So because the design industry changes so quickly, I think that also protects it from AI and the automation of jobs. AI tends to be more threatening to jobs where there's repetitive, rigid processes. So where there's like a lot of reading involved or mapping out of some existing content. And design is also heavily nuanced in human connections. I think that's going to, I personally think it's probably one of the most protected jobs that are available. That said, I think a lot of AI is going to take away from a lot of jobs and automate a lot of jobs. So if I was going to hazard a guess, I'd say maybe the jobs, maybe a 120-hour work week on the horizon, because 50% of everybody's jobs now are automatable. So maybe that might be something that happens. So that's AI. These are some of the skills that are going to become increasingly valuable, or that already have become increasingly valuable. These are some of the skills that are under threat by automation and things like that. So try to familiarise yourself with that. Most of these are around nuance, creative thinking, adapting quickly to change, reframing ill-defined problems. So a lot of that sort of stuff is going to make you valuable as an employee. So try to familiarise yourself with where the direction of design is going to go. Other than that, that's pretty much the end.